Get that camera the away from me.
How dare you?
Pedro Pascal didn't mince words. The moment Robert Downey Jr. hit go live on Instagram, what should have been a light-hearted Marvel hangout spiraled into something raw, unfiltered, and unforgettable. Tens of thousands of fans tuned in, expecting playful banter and inside jokes. Instead, they got chaos in real time. It all unraveled with one sentence. One phrase: Pedro probably wishes he could take back the Avengers are stupid. Not boring, not flawed, not overhyped, stupid. That single word hit like a grenade, because it wasn't just a jab at Marvel's billion-dollar franchise. It wasn't just a swipe at fictional characters. It was a direct insult to the culture, the fandom, and the man sitting beside him, the one who was Iron Man for more than a decade. Now put yourself in Robert Downey Jr.'s shoes. You've carried the MCU on your back, transformed it into the most powerful entertainment machine of its time, and left behind a legacy that reshaped pop culture. Then, live in front of the world, your soon-to-be co-star in Marvel's next big chapter, Pedro Pascal, set to debut as Reed Richards, takes a sledgehammer to that legacy with a smirk. Robert didn't laugh it off. He didn't let it slide. Instead, he leaned into the fire. Wait, did you just call the Avengers stupid? His voice sharpened, the playful smirk narrowing into something more dangerous. Pedro chuckled, as though it was a joke, but Robert pressed harder. Say it again, with your chest. Let everyone clip it, and clip it they did. Within minutes, X was ablaze with trending hashtags, and Pedro vows RDJ, MCU meltdown, Avengers are stupid. Reaction videos, memes, and hot takes exploded across social media before the live stream even ended. Here's the kicker. Pedro wasn't entirely wrong. Fans have long debated whether the Avengers, despite their heroism, made catastrophic blunders that cost millions of lives. Civil War, Ultron, Infinity War. Every win came with massive fallout. But calling them stupid directly to the man who embodied Tony Stark, that was crossing the MCU's sacred line, and Robert knew exactly how to weaponize the moment. He reminded Pedro of his own flaws, digging up receipts in front of a live audience. Oh, the Avengers are stupid. That's bold coming from the guy who couldn't even finish the Last of Us video game. The chat exploded with laughing emojis and GIFs. Pedro tried to play along, but the energy had shifted. This wasn't friendly teasing anymore. Robert kept going, pulling out references from Pedro's viral Vanity Fair lie detector interview. Weren't you the one who called yourself a bigger daddy than Oscar Isaac? Yeah, I remember that. Guess Daddy just called the Avengers stupid. The smirk on Robert's face said it all. He wasn't playing anymore. He was defending his turf, his legacy. But Pedro, ever the wild card, didn't back down. When Robert suggested maybe Reed Richards wouldn't last long in the MCU if his actor kept trashing the Avengers, Pedro fired a shot right back. If leadership means blowing up half the planet and then patting yourself on the back for fixing it, maybe I'll pass. That wasn't just a clapback. That was a direct hit on Tony Stark's biggest failures. The internet lit up. Was this real beef? A staged stunt to hype Marvel's next phase? Or was this something deeper? A sign of a divide between the old guard and the new blood? Because that's what made this clash so fascinating. It wasn't just about egos. It symbolized something larger. Robert represented the original MCU, the dynasty that built the empire. Pedro represented the future, the attempt to inject new life, new energy, into a franchise struggling to hold on to its magic. And the tension was undeniable. Robert wasn't just defending fictional heroes. He was defending the era that made Marvel untouchable. Pedro, on the other hand, was voicing what many fans have whispered for years. Maybe the Avengers weren't flawless champions. Maybe it was time for something new. The fallout was immediate and explosive. Edits of the livestream were turned into dramatic montages on TikTok, complete with ominous music and captions, like Marvel's Civil War II. Fan accounts dissected every eyebrow raise, every smirk, every clipped word for hidden meaning. Theorists claimed Marvel scripted the entire thing as viral marketing, but others argued it was too raw, too tense, too uncomfortable to be fake. Meanwhile, Pedro stayed silent. On Instagram, he went right back to his usual mix of memes, thirst traps, and behind-the-scenes selfies, without a single reference to the controversy. That silence only fueled speculation. Was he ignoring the drama to let it die down, or doubling down on the chaos by refusing to apologize? Robert, for his part, played it cool. No official statements. No clarifications. Just a few cryptic likes on fan posts that sided with him. The silence spoke louder than words. And behind that silence, insiders whispered about what really happened after the livestream ended. Private message, group chats between Marvel actors, One specific exchange that insiders say was so tense, no one dares speak about it on record. But to understand why Robert reacted the way he did, you have to understand Pedro's history. He's not reckless by accident. His whole brand is built on unpredictability, saying the thing everyone else is too scared to say. From candid Vanity Fair interviews to chaotic red carpet moments, Pedro thrives when he's on the edge of control. He plays dumb, plays goofy, but it's always calculated. And this time, it wasn't just calculated. It was nuclear. Because when Pedro called the Avengers stupid, he wasn't just trolling Robert Downey Jr., he was challenging the entire MCU hierarchy. And Marvel, whether it admits it or not, may already be preparing damage control. But Robert Downey Jr., he's built for challenges. He's a man who's been through Hollywood hell, clawed his way back, and then cemented himself as one of the most untouchable icons of modern cinema. If you think this was just another celebrity spat, you're missing the chess game happening underneath. Robert didn't just react emotionally in that Instagram live. He responded like a man who'd spent years mastering the art of staying on top in a cutthroat industry. Every move felt calculated. Every comeback was a dagger hidden inside a joke. He started stacking examples, strategically pulling receipts from Pedro's own past. Robert leaned in, his smirk sharp as ever. Oh, right. This from the guy who got fired from waiting tables. What was it? Almost 10 times. Pedro didn't flinch, but you could see his posture shift. He leaned forward, chuckled nervously, and fired back. I was fired often. How many times? Robert pressed eyebrows raised. Pedro hesitated, then admitted, upwards of I don't know. Maybe close to 10 times. The chat exploded. Viewers weren't just watching two actors, they were witnessing Marvel heavyweights sparring without scripts, throwing each other's failures back in their faces. Robert wasn't just defending the Avengers, he was dismantling Pedro piece by piece, using his own stories against him, and Pedro, for all his wit, started slipping. His usual charm began to crack, under Robert's relentless precision. The MCU has always thrived on illusion, the illusion of unity, of one big happy family, a billion-dollar trust fall where every actor is smiling on the red carpet, but behind the curtain, there's friction. Always has been. Look back. When Brie Larson entered as Captain Marvel, there were whispers of tension. When Anthony Mackie stepped up as Captain America, more whispers. Every new face shakes the hierarchy. And this was the first time we saw that fracture play out live, raw, unfiltered, and Robert wasn't done. He kept pushing, his tone shifted from playful to pointed. So the Avengers are stupid, huh? But let's not forget, Moon Knight would lose to Din Djarin at Scrabble. Pedro laughed, shook his head. Ridiculous. Moon Knight may win at Scrabble, but not a fight. The exchange was funny on the surface. Sure, but the tone, the smirk, the delivery, this wasn't banter anymore. This was ego versus ego, both refusing to back down. Two Hollywood titans testing how much damage they could inflict without actually breaking character. Then came the line that shifted the entire room. Robert, half smiling but dead serious, said, "You'll fit right in at Marvel if you survive the first press tour." That was the moment. Pedro's expression changed. Gone was the nervous laughter. In its place, that familiar stare, sharp, unshaken, the same look he gave during his now iconic Vanity Fair polygraph, when asked about mustaches. The look that screamed, challenge accept. The live ended shortly after, but the aftershock had just begun. Here's the truth. When someone like Pedro Pascal calls the Avengers stupid on a live feed with Robert Downey Jr. staring daggers at him, it doesn't just become content, it becomes a cultural accelerant. That single sentence detonated into a storm. Within minutes, editors clipped the exact moment Pedro said it. TikTok slowed down. Robert's jaw twitched and looped it with dramatic sound effects. X, formerly Twitter, was flooded with memes. YouTube commentators had full breakdowns online before the stream even ended. And the speculation machine, it went into overdrive. Was this real beef or a Marvel PR stunt? Was Pedro deliberately trying to disrupt the MCU hierarchy? Or was he just being himself, unfiltered, reckless, and fun? The fandom didn't wait for answers. They split into factions overnight. Some sided with Pedro, praising him for saying what fans had whispered for years, that the Avengers made dumb decisions, and maybe it was time for fresh leadership. Others rushed to Robert's defense, calling his reaction justified, even noble, a true guardian of Marvel's legacy. But the largest group, they didn't care about sides, they wanted the drama, the spectacle, the memes. Behind the scenes, Marvel's machinery was spinning. Because here's what most people forget. Crisis control in mega franchises isn't reactive, it's anticipatory. And yet, when a feud goes viral in real time, no PR team in the world can stop the first wave. The fandom always gets there first. Insiders whispered about what happened after the live ended. Rumors of a private call between Robert and Pedro circulated. Heated, tense, unresolved. No one on record confirmed it, but one source hinted it didn't go well. And if that's true, then this wasn't just a one-off spat. This was the beginning of a fracture inside Marvel's A-list roster. And Pedro, he didn't back down. Not publicly, not privately. He didn't apologize. He didn't issue a Marvel-approved clarification. He just kept posting his usual mix of selfies, memes, and behind-the-scenes shots, carefully avoiding the topic. Except in one subtle fan interaction. When someone asked if Reed Richards would ever join the Avengers, Pedro smirked and repeated, "It isn't necessarily something that my character's future entails." That wasn't clarification. That was a wink. A reminder. A continuation of the jab. Marvel noticed. So did Robert. And so did every single actor in the MCU. Because on massive franchises like this, tone matters. Hierarchy matters. When a new face pokes the old guard, it isn't just playful teasing. It's a symbolic challenge. And in Hollywood, symbolism can be more dangerous than truth. The fallout had only begun, and the rumored off-camera exchange. That's where the story takes a darker turn. Because what happened after the live, the words exchanged in private, the reactions from other cast members, the sudden shifts in press dynamics, that's the part Marvel insiders still whisper about. And that's exactly where this drama goes now. People fill in the silence with meaning. When cameras cut and microphones mute, the blank space becomes fertile ground for imagination. Was there a heated argument? A calm clarification? A quick handshake followed by a stiff "we're cool"? The public will never know the exact words. So they construct their own versions of the story. Insider leaks, conveniently, tend to mirror the factional bias of whoever's talking. To one side, it's a blow-up. To the other, it's barely a shrug. And yet, even the smallest fragments carry weight. Consider the supposed off-camera exchange. One voice, "You didn't have to go that hard." The other, sharper, "You did." Just two sentences. But together, they function like a perfect microplay. A duel in miniature. Within those lines sits accusation, defense, and a clashing of worldviews. If this were scripted cinema, it would be the quiet scene where the audience finally understands both characters' stakes. One man guarding a legacy he built, another demanding relevance in a new era. Nothing dramatic on the surface, but it's the hinge moment, the subtle pivot on which future trouble might swing. Then comes the cultural layer. Pedro's jab, stupid, wasn't just shade. It tapped into something deeper, a critique long simmering among fans and critics alike. On one side, the myth of Marvel itself. The heroic spectacle, the grand saga, the triumphs of legacy that defined the last 15 years. On the other side, a growing hunger for reinvention, for breaking the mold, for calling out the cliches and narrative laziness that inevitably creep into a machine that massive. Robert Downey Jr.'s reaction wasn't just ego, it was defense of a mythology he had come to embody. Pedro's blunt word, "stupid," became shorthand for the generational shift. It wasn't precise, but in an attention economy, it didn't need to be. It was a match dropped into a forest already primed to burn. Marvel, of course, has weathered plenty of PR fires before on-set feuds, controversial interviews, messy contract disputes. But this one was different. This wasn't rumor. This wasn't anonymous whispers. This was two stars, two faces of the brand, colliding live in front of millions. No room for spin. No time delay. The antagonist and the protagonist were in the same room when it happened, and the world watched in real time. Inside Marvel's command center, Slack threads and email chains lit up within hours. Has Pedro called him yet? Do we respond or ignore? How do we keep this from spiraling into Civil War 2.0 in the press? These weren't casual hypotheticals. These were frantic, time-stamped queries, bouncing between senior PR strategists and Kevin Feige's inner circle. The answer, ultimately, was quiet damage control. No glossy joint selfie. No press release dripping with platitudes about family. Marvel had learned that forced unity can sometimes look worse than silence. Instead, the first move was logistical. The carefully planned promotional calendar, joint interviews, overlapping red carpets, shared panels, was quietly dismantled. The public reason. Maximizing global reach. Robert would focus on Asia-Pacific. Pedro would take the European leg. Behind the curtain, It was a cooling-off period disguised as a marketing strategy. One assistant producer on a promo shoot put it bluntly, "We were told it's better if their first reunion is on a stage moment we can control." Translation: keep them apart until Marvel can script the reunion. Kevin Feige isn't known for micromanaging personal relationships, but insiders say he stepped in this time. 2 separate sit-downs, one with Pedro, one with Robert. To Pedro, the message was mentorship dressed as reassurance. "You've already got the part. You don't need provocation to prove you belong. Let the work speak." To Robert, the talk was a blend of respect and subtle caution. "You're still the loudest voice in the room, but the franchise needs space for new voices." It wasn't about forcing friendship, it was about narrative control, making sure Fantastic Four didn't launch under a storm cloud. And slowly, the recalibration showed. In follow-up interviews, Pedro didn't repeat the stupid grenade. Instead, he leaned on playful ambiguity, the kind of teasing that could be interpreted as critique or as banter. Meanwhile, Robert strategically shifted his tone, compliments about fresh energy coming into the MCU, about the excitement of new blood. He never mentioned Pedro by name, but fans picked up the signal. It was Marvel's equivalent of shaking hands through intermediaries. Still, tension left a fingerprint. At one private cast dinner in Los Angeles, Pedro and Robert were placed at opposite ends of the table. For most of the night, they didn't exchange a word until Brie Larson, mid-story, glanced at Pedro and deadpanned, "So, ready to lead the stupidest superhero team in history?" The table cracked up. Pedro smirked, "Only if I get to design the costumes." Everyone laughed, except Robert. His smile was there, but tight, controlled. And the choreography didn't end there. Robert's promotional segments were filmed weeks before Pedro's. Photo ops were staggered. Junket seating charts placed them strategically apart. To outsiders, invisible. To industry watchers, obvious. Controlled chemistry. Engineered avoidance. The first true test came months later at the Disney investor event, the moment everyone was waiting for. Pedro and Robert on stage together. The handshake was firm. The smiles polite. The whole encounter lasted under a minute before they exited opposite wings. Harmless enough until fans zoomed in on Pedro's shirt. Under his blazer, block letters, "It's just fiction." Was it a peace offering? A slide or a reminder that in the MCU, the drama on and off screen is all part of the show? Whether accident or calculated theater, one thing was clear: the Avengers Are Stupid moment had achieved something Marvel could never plan. It blurred the line between fiction and reality. From now on, every Pedro RDJ interaction will carry that subtext. Fans will parse every glance, every smile. Media will spin every clip, and Marvel, quietly, will measure whether the tension fuels engagement or fractures it. Because make no mistake, in 2025, controlled chaos isn't a liability, it's currency. If Marvel can harness this feud into hype without losing its stars, they'll milk it for all it's worth. But if the next off-the-cuff remark lands harder than stupid, then we may be staring down Marvel's first real civil war. Not on the big screen but backstage, in green rooms, press junkets, and live streams, watched by millions. A war not of superheroes, but of ego.